Good morning, business owners, coaches, consultants, and experts. It's Leon Street. We're back again, ready for another great topic, deep diving into the business owner mindset. And today we're talking about how to overcome your inner critic for coaches and experts. And this is a really great topic because the inner critic or the critical inner voice or self-criticism, this is this is probably one of the biggest hurdles for business owners, because unless you get a hold on it and know how to deal with your inner critic, it will hold you hostage for years. And if you don't get a hold on it, it may end up holding you hostage and your life, until you pass on. And for me, this is why I want to touch on this subject. I want to touch on this topic because what you'll find with a lot of successful people is they know how to manage their inner critic, and that's what allows them to continue to be a success rather than to buy into the storyline of the inner critic. So let's get into this. As always, please remember, do subscribe to the YouTube channel, guys. If you're not subscribed already, just go to leonstreet.com/YouTube and hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell to be notified of all my upcoming videos. So let's get into this. I'm going to kick off with a quote from Rosa Parks. Stand for something or you will fall for anything. Today's mighty oak is yesterday's nut that held its ground. And you might be thinking, well, this sounds external, but I want to use this quote coming from an inner perspective. You've got to be that mighty oak that stands its ground against your inner critic. And for me, this is what will allow you to go from, where you are right now, the seedling, let's say, and it doesn't matter how advanced you are. You could be a plant, you could be a growing oak, as the metaphor, is used. But the key here is to stand your ground against the inner critic and find your way. There may be storms, there may be different things going on, but you've got to be able to stand your ground in order to achieve what it is that you're here for, your goals, your vision, your purpose, and to make that a reality. So if we step forward and look at more of a definition, the inner critic or critical inner voice is a concept used in popular psychology and psychotherapy to refer to a sub-personality that judges and demeans a person. So it's what comes from within us, what judges and demeans us, ourselves. A concept similar in ways to the Freudian superego as an inhibiting censor, or the negative Jungian animus. The inner critic is usually experienced as an inner voice attacking a person, saying that he or she is bad, wrong, inadequate, worthless, guilty, and so on. And for me, this is probably the biggest point that I want to touch on from this definition. And this one I pulled from Wikipedia. There are, of course, other sources out there, but the point that I want to get to here is that your inner critic is going to tell you that you're bad. Your inner critic is going to tell you that you are inadequate, that things aren't going well. And I'm raising this because I come across quite a lot of clients, coaches, where their success doesn't necessarily hinge on, a marketing strategy or marketing tactic. For instance, it isn't social media, getting onto TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or running paid ads or something, similar. And it doesn't depend on them having the best webinar or whatever it is, right? It comes down to, when things aren't going well, how well that they can speak to themselves to get onto the next thing, to move on to the next thing. And this is where the inner critic finds its power. When you can't get beyond, a challenging period, when you can't get beyond, let's say, results not going your way, this is where your inner critic is going to go crazy. It's going to run, rings around you. And this is the point where, if you understand how to manage your inner critic, this is where you will find success, because you'll start to look at your life, not just in the moment of, let's say, a perceived failure or results just not going your way, but you're going to look at yourself in the sense of, that's okay. This is what's happened now. And you can be okay with things not going well, things failing, but you don't have to buy into the story as, the long life story, the rest of your life, thinking that, oh, I'm a failure. Oh, woe is me. And this is the challenge that a lot of people get caught up in, because we want success. And usually what tends to happen, and you may have heard the quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And so you start looking at other people and you think, wow, look how amazing they're doing. Look at all these people who've come into my industry. For instance, you might be, 30s, 40s, even 50s and 60s. And somebody who is like late teens or 20s, they're a seven-figure earner. And you're like, well, what's the difference between them and me? I've got way more knowledge. How could they possibly be such a success when I have an XYZ compared to them? And this is the thing, like everybody's story is different, and the way that somebody appeals to their audience and their niche, it really doesn't matter. The key thing is how you speak to yourself and say, you know what, I don't have to compare. I can actually push forward. I can continue in my goals, and whatever setbacks you've got, they're just part of your journey. And this is the thing that I want to get to here. And so for me, even though I touched on the definition of the inner critic, where, as it says, your inner critic will say that you're bad, you're wrong, you're inadequate, worthless, guilty, and so on. But that's not true. Those are just thoughts. That doesn't mean those thoughts have to be your reality. And this is what I want to touch on now. So if those thoughts don't have to be your reality, then I guess for me, the key is, well, what steps can you take in terms of going from inner critic to silencing the voice? And that's what I'm going to say. So I'm going to say silencing the voice. Let me just change this slide because I want to make sure that we've got the right things on screen for you. So silencing the voice. So I've got 5 key steps that I want to take you through in silencing the inner critic. So number 1, awareness. What is it saying? And so for me, you need to be aware to the fact that you do have this critical inner voice, because if you avoid it, you'll never know that it's actually speaking to you. And the point that I want to get to is, you might, for instance, be running your business. You might be living your life with you, your family, your partner. It really doesn't matter, but you're just living your life. And unless you pick up on what the inner critic is saying when those times are tough, and you'll know what I'm talking about, because when things aren't going well, do you say to yourself, oh, come on, or, why is it always happening to me? Why am I so bad at this? Why am I so rubbish? Why are things so hard? Why doesn't it come naturally to me? Why isn't it easy? Why isn't it flowing and abundant? And that's your critical inner voice. And everybody, you'll have different varying levels of language. So for instance, some people may be more severe, like you're a big letdown, or you're so weak. It could be different things, yeah. And that's the critical inner voice. But if you don't catch yourself in the moment, in the sense of, I don't have to buy into that, why am I saying that to myself? That becomes your reality, and that program keeps on repeating, because you'll get used to programming yourself to believing in those harsh words. And I want to come from a point of view where you don't have to be in this place of, kind of masculine energy and think, oh, I don't need to pay attention to that. That's all bullshit. But the reality is that, we're governed by the thoughts in our mind. We're governed by what we believe in and what we buy into. And so if we're not aware to those things that we're saying and the impact that they have on us, and the fact that we're saying them internally, it's the inner voice, right? We'll never create what we want externally, because the inner voice is where creation comes from, us, ultimately. And so we have to get a hold onto it. And so the first step is becoming aware to the critical inner voice. And if this resonates, guys, just let me know in the comments below, whether you're watching live or watching on the replay. And the reason why I say awareness is the first important step, because if you think about a computer program, imagine a computer program that you were using and was running, and this computer program always spoke to itself in a negative way. Do you think the outcome of that program or app, let's say, would be a positive one? And so, very simple metaphor. And that's the same thing for you. And this is why you've got to be aware to, what am I saying? Catch yourself in the moment. Because I come across a lot of business owners, for instance, they'll say, I'm no good. I'm so slow. Why can't I get this? Things aren't moving fast. That's part of your critical inner voice. But you might just say those things normally and think that's the normal way that I speak. But you've got to catch it. Awareness. Second step, write it down. You need to write down, what are the things that you're saying to yourself? And I'll give you a quick story. I remember I used to play quite a lot of five-a-side football. So for those of you outside the UK, soccer, I guess more so in America. But I'd play a lot of five-a-side football on weekends and evenings. And I remember when I was not doing well, i.e. tackling, shooting, or whatever, just not performing at the right level, I'd be like, I'd be swearing at myself. I'd be like, oh, fuck, like, come on, Leon. And I'd be speaking to myself in this way. And I'd be like, come on, why are you shooting so poorly, or whatever else? Yeah. And so what I found over a period of time, I was like, why am I speaking to myself this way? Because I had a good idea on what I needed to say to myself in order to encourage myself. And what happened was, I was thinking, well, whenever it comes to other players who I was playing with on the teams, I would always encourage them in the right way. Yeah, I was speaking to myself in the wrong way. And so my awareness kicked in to the point where I stopped talking down to myself as I was playing football. And I'd start speaking myself up. I'd be like, oh, you can shoot in a better direction. Or come on, Leon, let's make this happen. Let's go again. And I would encourage myself. And for me, that was the first step in awareness. And now if you look at you in your business, have you been speaking yourself down? If you have, that's the first thing you're aware. Write those thoughts down. Now, here's why this is important. When you write those thoughts down, you start to see them. And at that point, you are in a place where you can act. And what you must do is write this. You write them down as you would normally say them. So you'd say, oh, I'm so weak, or I'm not good enough. I'm so bad. I'm not lovable. I'm not approachable. I'll never attract enough leads or customers. And then what you do is you rewrite them as you. And the reason why you turn them from I am to you are is you alienate yourself. You create separation away from the words. You create separation away from that critical inner voice. And so rather than identifying the I, you start to create separation. And when you read them, you start to see them for the false thoughts that they are. They're not true. Yeah, they're only true if you believe. And the next thing is, now that you can see them as alienated statements, i.e. you, rather than identifying them as I, you start to see them as you, therefore external to you. You can now reframe them and rewrite them. Yeah. And rewrite them in a way that encourages you, in a way that, you know, you can talk yourself up into a situation, in a way that you can see how you actually want to reply and respond to the current challenges, circumstances, whatever it is that you're facing. And this is where the power steps in for you. This is where you go to that next level. And a lot of people don't see this, especially when they're caught up in that critical inner voice and they're deep in conversation with it. And it's become a weekly, monthly, yearly program that you started to pay attention to. And it's so easy that you can just turn on your internal radio and it just tunes into Inner Critic FM. So step 4 is don't act from the critic. You need to act from the visionary. And what that means is the more aware you become, the more that you've written these thoughts down and you've reframed them, you should not act out of the I am bad, I am not this, I am not good enough. And you start acting out of the visionary. And the visionary is, what is it that you want to create in your life? You know, all the different aspects in your business, you know, your family life, in your community, the way you interact with people, your emotions, the time you want to spend with people. And you start looking at, well, what is the vision for your life? And you act from that place. You act from a higher place. You act from a place that will light up this world. You act from a place where you will make and create impact because of the different things that your vision will allow you to grow into, will allow you to step up to. And when you start acting out of that place, you start losing fear, and you stop fear becoming real, because it never was in the first place, but you just made it real because you believed in it. And, you know, at that point, you're starting to set yourself free. You probably did those steps where you changed it from I to you, where that was the first step. But as you act from your vision rather than the critic, you really allow things to accelerate. And here's the final step of what you can do. You fortify your environment. So when it comes to your environment, I'm talking about your inner environment and what you see externally. So inner and outer. So you start looking at creating things like affirmations. Yeah. And this is the first stage. And there is a video that I've done on affirmations, on the right ways to do affirmations. 1, if you're in low confidence, and 2, if you're in high confidence. Because affirmations can go against you if you're writing them in the wrong way, depending on how confident you are at that point in time. Set yourself goals from what your vision is. Meditation can help you to become more mindful, help you to drop that inner voice, just to find, silence. And that's what you want from meditation. You just want to connect to a higher place where the inner critic isn't given space. You want to look at personal development books, audio books, get a mentor, get a coach, get on programs, and really look at how you can tackle that inner critical voice. And these are my 5 steps on how you can silence that inner critic. And for me, when you start to apply these 5 steps, a lot of things will change in your life. I guess my first steps were audiobooks. That's how I got into this. Got a coach in 2008. That was kind of like earlier in my business career. And for me, these were the big critical steps in how I needed to change where I was going in life. And I always had this belief like, always had ambition, always had these goals, but I didn't really understand what was the missing piece. I always used to think, well, what's the key to success? How are all these other people successful? And what I didn't understand is that there was a lot of unlearning and reprogramming that I needed to go through. And the critical inner voice is part of that process because it's connected to the ego, and it's connected to the part usually linked to bad habits that were taught to you either by significant people in your life, and these can be parents, uncles, aunties, grandparents, whatever. It's almost like picking up their habits when actually they're not right for your life, and this is where the inner critic can come from and be born out of. And you may have heard it referred to as childhood trauma, and that's it. And that's what you're doing. What you're actually doing is unlearning so you can reprogram what's right for you according to your vision. And I hope with these 5 steps that just starts your journey, moving you in the right direction. So let's move on from here and close out. If I am not good to myself, how can I expect anyone else to be good to me? Maya Angelou. And I'm just going to leave you with that one. You've got to be good to yourself, and it starts from inside, guys. And that way you'll experience not just people being good to you, but all the abundance that you're looking for in your life and in your business. So guys, that's the end of today. If you do want help growing your business to over £10,000 a month or $15,000 a month in 60 days in 2021, and you're a coach or expert and you've had enough of your inner critic, and you want to be able to find strategies and a coach and mentor who can guide you in the right direction, which would be me, then simply comment success below this video, what you're watching right now, and I'll send you more details. I'll be in touch, send you more details on what you can do to take the next steps to getting your business to another level of success. So on that note, guys, if you've enjoyed the content and the content has resonated with you, please do remember, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just head on over to leonstreet.com/YouTube and you'll be redirected to my YouTube channel. Otherwise, you can just go onto YouTube if you're on the app and just type in Leon Street. And when you are there, just hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell to be notified of all my upcoming live streams and videos. On that note, guys, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. Don't believe and don't listen to the inner critic. Don't act on it. You can reframe, rewrite, and choose the direction where you want your life to go. And on that note, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.